Something to note as you're going through your notes, you'll see that I have reiterated the 4 conditions needed for perfect competition and talked about or shown you that there's an acronym to use to help you remember that, which the acronym is HELP. So homogeneous product, no barriers to entry or exit, large number of sellers, and perfect information. So make sure that you know that, because it will most likely show up on a quiz or an exam coming up. So we're going to move on and talk about imperfect competition. And the first thing to realize is when we talk about imperfect competition, it's no longer good enough just to have the demand curve on the graph. We need to also have a marginal revenue curve. Marginal revenue, graphically speaking, is drawn as 1/2 of your demand curve. There are 3 types of imperfect competitions that we're going to talk about. And we're just going to talk from a supply standpoint. You'll note that the book also talks about buyer markets as well, but we don't need to know those for the scope of our course, but I am asking you to know the supply parts, or the input markets. So the 3 types are monopolistic competition, oligopolies, and monopolies. Oligopoly, I think, is one of my favorite words to say, by the way. We'll start with monopolistic competition. So monopolistic competition shows that there are many number of sellers. Their products are differentiated a little bit by use of advertising and sales promotions. They'll get profits in the short run based on those advertisements, but in the long run, someone else will come along with a better advertisement, and we'll all shift our focus to purchasing that other product. And what we're going to try to do is we're going to equate marginal cost and marginal revenue, and then price off of our demand curve. So that's how we're going to find price and quantity on our competition. So the next thing that we need to do for our graph is we need to put ourselves a marginal cost curve. So with the marginal cost curve, we're going to choose to produce where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. So where these 2 lines cross each other, marginal cost, marginal revenue, that's where we're going to produce. And this is our output decision rule. That's why we went through all that to learn this, because it does come into play a little bit later. So we've set quantity here. And what that means is that our supply curve has become vertical. If we're setting quantity, that is how much we are going to supply. So at that point, our price now will be set where supply equals demand, which is going to be up here. So that's the biggest part of the monopolistic competition graph, is that your quantity is set where marginal cost equals marginal revenue, and then from there, you create yourself a supply curve, and then you can find where price is set at. And if you look on the graphs that you have printed out, you can find profits with your total cost curve. Again, if you had a total cost curve drawn in here, on our quantity line, if we figure out where that crosses your total cost and figure out the area of that box, that would then be known as profit. There's a list of some imperfect competition that you see. One of the big things for monopolistic competition is advertising, and you'll note that there's quite a bit of restaurant or fast food restaurant advertising that goes on. A couple other examples would be cereal. Cereal does a lot of advertising if you ever watched Saturday morning cartoons. And toothpaste is the third option that you can choose to put down for this answer.